I think, you know, clearly we are facing this massive twin challenge of climate change, biggest challenge facing humanity as we're used to hearing, but facing it at a time when we've also had one of the biggest and most significant financial crashes and failures of financial services in a very, very long time indeed. And I think you know, some of the old solutions, the pre-crash solutions, have now been shown to be well and truly redundant. And it was good to hear Ed Miliband talking very clearly about the fact that the market alone is not going to get us out of this mess, nor can any solution be purely business-led. I seem to remember a few years ago when you know, climate change was almost talked about as if it was a lifestyle choice issue. You know, we were going to have a consumer-led solution, and I remember a number of business leaders being interviewed in, I think it was the Daily Mail, about what they were doing individually to cut their carbon footprint. And we had, I don't know whether to name and shame, but we had certain ones talking about how they were going to turn down the degrees on their indoor swimming pool. We had other ones saying that they were going to leave the Merc at home more often. And one I particularly remember, because I remember being gobsmacked, talking about how he intended to plant 300 trees in his back garden. At which point I was thinking, that must be one hell of a back garden. So clearly those old solutions aren't going to work. We are operating in a different world. Over the last 20 years, I think we've had 1 billion new consumers come into the global market. And I think that's, in many ways, reflecting the aspiration of developing countries who frankly don't want to be told that suddenly they're the ones who have to tighten their carbon belt when the developed world has been living on the never-never, as it were, for a very long time. And they're looking for justice too. So it's justice between countries as well as within countries. I think we've also got real fear and insecurity. This is something that the trade union movement, I think, needs to address strategically. We've got 2.5 million people unemployed. We've got more and more people worrying about their jobs, and perhaps, understandably, I would suggest, more resistant to anything they see might put those jobs at risk at a time when they're too worried about living through the next week to be worried about dying in the future. And I think we're on a tipping point here where for the first time, in a very long time, ordinary working people, by which I'm talking about middle income as well as lower income workers, for the first time are having to contemplate a future where their children might be worse off than themselves. And I think, again, you know, we have to be realistic about the context within which we're all working to try and advance the agenda for a low-carbon economy. I want to put on record the TUC's welcome for the Climate Change Act, for the New Jobs, New Industries document, for the commitment to working on low-carbon economic strategies, and particularly welcome is that support for the proposition of a Just Transition Forum. But I wouldn't be a trade unionist, Pat, if I didn't think we could not do more and better. And there are just 3 areas that I really think we need to focus on. One is, I don't claim in any sense of the word to be an expert like Sue, like Paul Moon, who leads for us on the General Council. I am very definitely a laywoman on this agenda. But the more I've learned about it, and particularly helped by some of the work from the Green Alliance, you begin to realise what a major transformation of our whole infrastructure we're going to need to be able to re-engineer our economy towards a lower carbon economy. You know, this is big stuff. You start thinking about the national grid and how much that will cost to transform into a smarter grid. You start thinking about the kind of investment we need in renewables energy to get anywhere close to the kind of balance we want to see, the kind of money it will take to make clean coal a reality. So we're not just developing the technology, but actually applying it. What it would need to electrify our railway system, what it means to build the energy efficient homes we need, what it means to tackle greater energy efficiency in workplaces, which we sometimes forget account for half of all the UK's emissions. This is big money and it has very big implications. And I think I would like to see the government being as bold in action in respect of what we do about the money as some of the thinking that there is there on industrial strategy. Because to be frank, Pat, you know, we've got UKFI. We've got a stake in this. We haven't, frankly, got anybody on the board of this representing wider public interest, let alone trade union interest. But it is our money. And if that money is there, I want that to be redirected towards the real economy, towards the new economy, towards the green economy, and a kind of economy that will deliver quality jobs. We've got real issues about, at the current time, about what we do about a falling tax take. I think it was last year the TUC produced a report showing there is £25 billion worth of tax avoidance going on amongst the wealthy. I think, you know, this isn't about rhetoric anymore. We need serious money. We need to be able to get our hands on it, and we need a fair tax system so that we get a fair contribution from all. Secondly, on the jobs front and the apprenticeship front and that crucial need for STEM skills, you know, I think we all recognise we've got a responsibility in here. We've all got a roll up our sleeves and we've got to start helping you work on this strategy. But I would love us to get a grip of procurement policy, because I'm an anorak on that. I may not be an expert on climate change, but I have become something I like to think of an expert on our government's procurement policy. And you know, it's £175 billion worth of contracts. There is a lot more that we could be doing on that to really get those companies who benefit from those contracts to deal with their own energy efficiency issues, to be providing real and decent apprenticeships and much more. And I understand in the department a question is being asked by officials: are we asking too much of our procurement policy? Well, I always remember Tony Benn saying the problem is not that we ask too much, it's that we ask for too little. And I think we could be much more ambitious on that front too. And finally, on worker voice, again, I really do welcome that commitment to a just transition forum. I think it's absolutely crucial. We're not just principled people, we're pragmatic people. We want to get round the table with real companies and government and start breaking down some of the barriers there are to scaling up the growth of green jobs and apprenticeships that we want to see. And we've also got to tackle, and let's be mature about this, we've also got to tackle what this means for workers in high energy industries. What does it mean for workers in steel? What does it mean for workers in aviation? It's no good any of us just talking at all if we're not alive to the fact that there are real people with real worries, real communities, where it matters whether or not we manufacture trains in Britain. It matters whether we manufacture wind turbines in Britain. And it also matters, welcome though it is, that there might be developments in the northeast. We know that there are real people on the Isle of Wight who are looking for what are our opportunities, what's going to happen to our livelihoods. So we have got to start matching up how we build up new industries with where those jobs are needed. We can't let it be, and I know what's been really good to hear over this week is the Labour government being very clear. We are not going to have a return to the 1980s where we saw the kind of industrial vandalism, the disregard of the impact of job losses on communities. We're not going to say it's nothing to do with government, wash your hands. This is something that we all care about, we're all committed to, and together we've got enough brain power between us to be able to manage the economy towards a fairer, prosperous one. So thank you.